Welcome to the Fed to Fed podcast, where we dive into the dynamic world of government technology. In this podcast series, we'll be joined by current and former federal leaders and industry trailblazers who are at the forefront of innovation. Here, we speak openly and honestly about the challenges and opportunities facing the federal government and the Department of Defense and its partners in the modern age, driving innovation and the incredible capabilities of technology along the way. Whether you're a federal leader, a tech industry professional, or simply fascinated by IT modernization, just like us, this podcast is for you. And we're so happy to have you tuning in. Tony is the dynamic and results-driven Chief Growth Officer at Oddball, with a proven track record of driving $1 billion plus in revenue and market expansion for leading organizations. Tony works with the Oddball team to identify opportunities for sustainable growth, crafting innovative strategies, and fostering cross-functional collaboration to achieve remarkable results. Rob Wilkinson is the co-founder and Chief Technology Officer of Oddball. He is responsible for finding cutting-edge digital solutions to innovate government services. Passionate about user experience, his work is pivotal in identifying next-generation technologies and methodologies to accelerate delivery and deliver world-class client results. Rob and Tony, thank you so much for joining us today. I just love that you're down in Austin in a really cool studio in Austin as we prepare for this great conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, let's go ahead and jump right in. Rob, you're a co-founder of Oddball. How did you guys come up with the name Oddball?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like you said, it'll be 9 years actually on the 1st. November 1st will be our 9-year anniversary. So Travis and I originally started as a product company. We were based in LA, and we started doing a lot of dev work for small and medium-sized businesses, building out software. And we were trying to find a name. We looked around and we were searching for domains, and there were a few options that came up. And one day we were sitting around and we said, hey, what makes us a little odd? We felt like we were a little odd, and what made us different was the fact that we were sort of bringing this high quality software development, but also bringing engineers forward who can understand the business case and the end user need, and deliver software that solves that. At the time, we had a lot of experience with other agencies that were sort of just delivering software according to requirements and just sort of fulfilling high-level spec sheets, but didn't focus on solving that end user need. So we thought that was a little odd, and one day we looked around and we were like, hey, it makes us odd. Let's go with Oddball. The domain was free, and then 9 years later, the rest is all history. So we kind of we like the name, and we also think it sort of brings a fresh edge. And self-selects a little bit too, right? There's the Beltway has tons of companies that are, whatever, Federal, Solution, Inc., and Oddball is a little different. It brings a little bit of a different energy, and when customers hear it, they usually remember it and think that we're going to bring something different as well.
I love it. It's funny. When I first spoke with Travis and he talked to me about the name of Oddball, and this was years ago, I was like, Oddball, how could that even be connected to government? It is one of the few company names that I've never forgotten. And that's another really great thing about it too. So it definitely sticks with people. So thanks for telling us that story, Rob. And Rob, you've been the CTO as well, and also as the co-founder. Can you share a little bit how Oddball has continued to maintain its culture while also continuing to show substantial growth and an ability to adapt to an always changing IT landscape?
Yeah. Well, I think the key is right there in what you said. It's all about culture, right? Early on, Travis and I were a big believer that when it comes to cultures, you can have a strong culture, a weak culture, and you can have a good culture and a toxic culture, right? I'm sure we've all worked at places that have a strong sort of cult-like culture, but it's really toxic, right? Everybody gets on board, and you either have to hop on that culture or not. So it's strong and toxic. Here at Oddball, we have a set of core values that we hire, reward, and fire according to. So that way we make sure that when we're adding people, it's an addition to our culture, but it also fits in with the existing culture that we have, right? So we've got this culture of high delivery and delivering pragmatic digital services. And we bring on new people, they adhere to that culture as well. So we're sort of growing. And I feel like our growth has been very natural. I remember we've won a contract and had to add significant new folks, and we've sometimes been worried, hey, what's going to happen when we bring these people on? Is it going to sink our culture, change it significantly? And we've never really found that to be the case. Each person is adding to our culture, creating a more strong, robust culture of delivery, so we can sort of bring our services to bear and help deliver the products that, warfighters and taxpayers want at the end of the day.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Rob. So, Tony, you've been at Oddball for, I forgot how long. How long have you been there?
Geez, I guess coming up on 15 months now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, you've been in the government contracting space for many, many years, and you've seen changes of administrations. What effect, if any, do you see with a change in administration this November coming up within the federal IT landscape?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think that, as you alluded to, right, change is constantly occurring. And I have no doubt in my mind that we'll see more change with this new change in administration, right? No matter who gets elected to office. I think the one unique thing, though, about the federal government today, maybe versus 20 years ago, is we are seeing a greater emphasis on digital services, right? We're seeing these smaller type contracts that are really heavily focused on what is the user experience, right? How are citizens of our country using applications provided by the government? And how are we as federal contractors and how is the government working to continue to provide those services, right? And I think that's something really everybody can get on board with, right? We, no matter what our backgrounds or political beliefs are, we have users of the government systems. We all want to be able to access things easily, right? We want to be able to get on our apps and get on our computers and get the services that we want. And we want to be able to quickly navigate, right, those screens and those pages. And I really don't see that changing too much. Now, certainly the priorities will change, the funding will change, and the agencies that get the focus, they probably will change, right? But at the end of the day, digital services is something that everybody in our community can benefit from. And I think that will continue to see that happen.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
I think
Rob?
that there was actually the Digital Service Administrator who was under Obama gave a talk in Europe the other day and was talking about how a lot of digital services is now, inside of agencies completely, right? Like it's a part of the existing IT organization that they have in place and isn't going in a way that it may have in like 10 years ago, right? Where a simple administration change could perhaps have sent things in a different direction, right? So he was giving that talk, which was interesting, sort of talking about the growing up of digital services. And now you have folks who used to be at digital services who are now full GSs or SESs within agencies as well, too.
Yeah, no, it's been a very exciting time. And every time that I talked with somebody new, they said, we're rolling it out for our entire agency.
Yeah.
They're not just relying and reaching back into the U.S. Digital Service Organization, which is really cool. So, Rob, tell us a little bit more about the executive order, depending on the administration that does get in. What do you see as continuing to stick? Things that you recommend to agencies that they need to push forward with, things that they may need to keep in mind to be able to continue driving?
Yeah, I mean, executive orders always, there's been quite a few. I think, different administrations have different emphasis that they put on executive orders. The consumer experience one, I believe it came out in December 21, I want to say. To be honest, I think it was a strong executive order. It aligned with what the American people want, right? It was talking about improving customer experience, gave a few sort of large guidelines around metrics that agencies should be tracking, things that they should be doing, methodologies that they should follow. And then the Biden administration also additionally went a little bit deeper, right? And then for specific agencies was giving strong recommendations. Hey, Social Security Administration, you need to do this. Hey, Medicare, you need to do this, right? And giving sort of guidelines and changes to specific experiences. I think the passport one was another big one as well, right? How do we improve the passport experience for folks too? To be honest, I think it's very a smart move and also hard to fight against, right? How do you take that political position of like, hey, what do I want to do? I want to reduce customer experience. It doesn't really fly, right? There's been quite a few. You also have the cybersecurity advancement executive order as well, which was a big impact, which also affected how people do ATOs and some of the things within there. But I think it'll continue to stay, Susan. I hope to see more orders like that in the future, right? And obviously, I'm a little biased. Some of our VA work was in that order, so I have a personal connection as well. But I think it's good for America. It's good for beneficiaries, warfighters, taxpayers, all that stuff, right? In order to improve those experiences and reward the vendors that do that and do it well, and deprioritize the initiatives that aren't living up to those standards. It just makes sense in my mind.
No, thank you, Rob, for sharing that. I've got one more question for you related to the work that you're driving and doing. So, when you're taking a look at working on digital services, can you talk a little bit more about, at first it was all about that customer journey, right? Or citizen journey, veteran journey, beneficiary journey. I can go on, right? Can you talk to us a little bit more about how far it's come and those other things that you have to consider? We're looking at data, we're big data, right? We're looking at AI, we're looking at security, cybersecurity, and how important that is. So when you're putting all these pieces together, what are those things that you've seen that have shifted, right? As this has evolved over time since when you all first started working in the space?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that it's significantly different, but I think it's really all about there's a lot of rough spots within those customer journeys still, right? Like it's not a smooth path in a lot of places. Significant chunks of it will be smooth, but I think it was GSA a couple of years ago that did those big customer journeys, right? And they picked a few different ones. They picked, somebody entering Medicare, turning 65 and retiring. They picked someone separating from the military and entering the VA. And even though you have significant chunks in there that were smooth, some of those transitions from one status to the other, government can still do better at that, right? We may be good for someone who's, been in the VA for 5-10 years, but that person getting into the VA, getting their initial data in there, all of that stuff, right? There's still going to be pain points. And the same thing with a Medicare beneficiary, retiree, someone having a kid, right? When you have these life events that happen to folks, that's where government can still do better. And in order to do those, right, you have those underlying technological challenges. Let's take the example of someone separating from the military, entering the VA. There's inherently a data challenge there. You have two separate federal agencies. Tony's been in the VA for a long time. You have DOD needing to share data with the VA. How does that happen? How does that happen smoothly so that journey can be improved, right? I think that's really the signposting, to focus on those pain points, find out what's going on, and then you find the tech challenges underneath, and those are the challenges you solve. But if you just take the mindset of like, we're going to arbitrarily fix these technical challenges without knowing the journey point that they're causing pain to, you don't really know when you've solved it or when you're finished, right? You could just end up doing a slog forever. So that is sort of my view.
That's great. That was really helpful. So, Tony, you've been working with the government for many years. Acquisition is always, the whole process is a heavy lift, right? From the government point of view, and certainly for the vendor community. We also find that there's a lot of innovations that are happening, emerging technologies that are available, and the acquisition at the speed of innovation is just not aligned. Can you talk to us a little bit more about how government can streamline acquisitions to better ensure a positive user experience?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, right? I've learned a lot over the last 20 years, and I don't think I had a gray hair when I started in this industry, because it can be taxing for us on the business development side of the house, right? It is a long life cycle, and a lot of work goes into being successful in these opportunities. And one of the biggest challenges we face on the growth side, depending no matter what company you work at, right, is really being able to get in early and often and meet with our government customers. And we understand it; they've got busy schedules as well, right? And we don't want to always be knocking on their doors, but the reality is, for us in industry to provide government the best services, they have to open those doors a little bit. They have to talk to us, right? They need to give us an opportunity to come in and share ideas and really have some candid feedback so that we're able to have the ability to put the best technologies forward, the best solutions forward, right? The best staffing levels forward that meet their need, while also being conscious, right, that they do have budgetary constraints, right, that they have to work within. And so I think, on the government side, being able to give industry that opportunity more early and more often, I think is key, right? But, there's a lot of work on our side too. And we on the BD side have to do our part too. We always joke, right, that, you never go in and say, tell me your pain points, right? You should already know the pain points. And I think that we on industry side can be better about understanding what the government needs and wants. I've always made it a habit throughout my career. I'm sort of a policy nerd by trade. Like, I watch what's happening on Capitol Hill. I pay attention to hearings, right? I read those transcripts because the old saying goes, right, it all flows downhill.
Right.
And chances are, if Congress is holding a hearing with X government agency about something, that's probably going to be a priority for them, right? And you should sort of understand that and understand how that affects their needs and their business and their requirements, so that when you do get that opportunity to go in and speak with them, you have something substantive to share, right? And you have some real feedback and some ideas. And then I think, to answer the second part of your question, right, especially in digital services and things with like AI and machine learning, those things are changing so quickly, right? And in reality, the government acquisition lifecycle doesn't necessarily support that, right? By the time you get a market research out, an RFP, and then an award, there may be 2 or 3 hotter technologies, right, on the table already. And so I think that if there's a way for government to do those acquisitions a little quicker, maybe do some smaller acquisitions for prototypes, I think that'll give industry a better chance to showcase some of those things. But I think it'll give the government more of a real-time view of what is out there and what is available to them.
I love it. Rob?
Yeah. A lot to unpack there, but Tony's heard me harp on this many times about specifically with AI, right? And the speed at which government acquires and the speed at which these companies rise and fall. And I think the thing is that it's easy sometimes to take the stance that's like, hey, if companies want to put in the work to get to government, they will. That's true in some cases, but for a lot of AI companies, there's commercial right there. Right. And that's much easier for them to access that market and be successful within that market. Do they want a smaller company is not going to put in the effort to sort of get across those different federal barriers to get a contract or to get FedRamped or whatever it takes? So then who really loses? Well, the federal government, right? Commercial has access to this great AI product or technology, and the federal government is going to always be behind. And that's not what we want over the next 5 to 10 years, right? Government wants to be on par with commercial or better than commercial, right? People want that TurboTax experience, not logging into a Windows 95 website from 20 years ago. So how do we do that, right? Like, there's been talk about revamping FedRAMP, revamping these standards, but it's all about acquisitions, understanding that this world that they're entering and knowing that, hey, they need to move quick, they need to move faster and meet companies halfway to get there in order to sort of acquire those great products and services.
That's awesome. So a few years ago, before COVID, Mishu Tasnen, she was with USDS and over at CMS, she shared with me, Susan, people need to understand, show us, don't tell us. So can you all share with us how important technical challenges and demos are that can be used to improve customer and end user experience?
Yeah, sure. They're a lot of work. Technical challenges are a lot of work, right? But Tony and I, we both love them here. And we're biased. We've been successful with technical challenges, right? I think there's a few things that are important. First of all, like, it's a lot of burden. It's always a lot of work. Is it a ton of burden to write 180-page PWS for the government? Sure. Is that difficult? Yeah, it's a total. But the difference is that's a completely different skill set than actually the work that you're doing, right? Like, that's a skill set in writing PWSs versus a skill set in being able to deliver software effectively. And technical approaches they don't work for every acquisition case. I'll be the first to say that. If you're putting out something around help desk, right? Maybe a technical challenge isn't going to be the right way to do it. Right? What are you going to do? But for a lot of things, if there's a way to actually boil something down into a show me, don't tell me, right? You get a feel and a sense of what the team you're going to be working with is actually going to deliver, how they work, and depending on how you structure your key personnel, even the folks that you'll be working with as well. So, we've seen a ton of different formats, from a single day to 2 days to 2 weeks to longer, right? And it's really become a thing where now when we look at a lot of acquisitions that are out there, I feel it's more and more the norm, right? Where you're going to see some sort of technical challenge, right? And less your traditional, 40-page technical approach or something like that. I don't know, Tony, what do you think?
Well, I think, back to your earlier question, Susan, about speeding up the acquisition lifecycle a little bit. We look at some of our customers today. I'll give one example, right? The Department of Veterans Affairs with Cedar and now Spruce. They are able to move pretty quickly, right? And there's a reason for it. And to Rob's point, right, we're not seeing, hey, we need a 50-page tech volume and a 20-page manual. Like, it's, hey, here we need a short write up, and then here's our requirements. Build it and show us you can do it, right? Essentially, and I think we've seen on Cedar, and then I'm sure we'll see it continued on Spruce. Like, you see how successful the VA's been with that model and how they've been able to quickly move things through. I think we're seeing a lot of our other government partners look to VA and CMS with Acme and others, right, on how to do these things, because the model has proven to work. And again, to Rob's point, the government is going to know pretty quickly, are they getting somebody that can actually deliver the work, especially when it relates to application development, right? If you can do it, and you can do it in that 2-hour or 2-day window, it gives the government some level of comfort that you're going to be able to produce.
And I think it's a reasonable expectation, right? A team that says, hey, we can do software development and human-centered design should be able to put together a team that can actually do it, right? Put your money where your mouth is. Put your money where your mouth is, right?
Yeah.
So what does digital transformation look like today? And what will it look like 10 years from now? I'm asking everybody to lean into that. What do we expect? What are we going to get to see?
2 letters. AI. No, that's the easy answer, right? But I've been thinking a lot about this, actually, of what it looks like. I think that really, it depends is the big answer, right? Really is the big answer is it depends. But I just imagine that, the government in 10 years is a lot more human-based interaction, right? Dealing with chatbots, voice interaction and interfaces to do things, less filling out forms. There's a recent demo on OpenAI where someone's interacting with OpenAI, and it goes through and orders like 100 chocolate-covered strawberries from a restaurant. Right? If you can do that on that side, why can't you do that to fill out an application for benefits, or to look at your Medicare claims, or deal with customer support or something like that? So I think there's really going to be a transformation towards more human interaction type services, and less towards filling out forms to do things. That's my view.
Yeah, I mean, I think as the younger generations, it's just inevitable, I think. I've got 3 kids, right? A high schooler, a middle schooler, and an elementary age daughter. And it's sort of weird, right? Because there's this constant battle of like, we don't want you to have too much screen time. We want to monitor that. But then sometimes, right, working in this industry and knowing what's coming, I sit back and I'm like, this is what they know. And we as a population, we're just becoming more and more in need of having instant answers and instant gratification, right? And so, it's funny, like I try to get my kids off their screen, yet I'm telling them to do that while I'm on my own screen, right? Trying to get my own quick answers. And so it's just like, I think that's naturally the way we're going. And I think that we've just sort of got to evolve and, be responsible and careful with it all. But, to Rob's point, it's just going to continue. And the ability to access information and do things is going to continue to get quicker and quicker.
That's awesome. I was talking with somebody the other day that's leading innovation at NASA. And we were talking about different levels of leadership, right? You can be a leader from any seat. And she goes, you know who I want to be with? And I said, who? She goes, all the people that are younger than I am, because they know what's going on in terms of innovation. They can continue to push me and push the envelope and get us where we need to go. So, Tony, to your point, it is an exciting time. And what will be so great is that whole paradigm of leaders reaching right into all those people that are doing really disruptive things coming out of
Yeah.
school that nobody even thought about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Last question I have on the list. How does Oddball define success on a program? And how does that affect our government partners?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, you know, it's different. It's different on every program. There's some broad metrics for success, right? That you could define is the end user happy with the work, right? Are you sort of fulfilling it? From a user perspective, there's technical metrics that you can have there. I think, but all that really boils down to, right? Are you achieving the outcomes of the agency? If that's, let's take Medicare.gov, right? What are we trying to do there? We're trying to provide visibility into data, give a user experience for folks to get access and know what's happening with their claims and their services. And that boils down to user surveys, user interactions, and things like that. And everything builds towards that. You know, if there's latency, there's servers are slow or things are down, those metrics are going to go down, right? So for us, that's really what success is all about: is are we delivering on those outcomes and providing those services to, veterans, warfighters, beneficiaries, taxpayers, all that stuff. That's what I would say,
great.
Tony. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as a user of government systems, I think Rob said it best, right? Like, success for us is the end user happy? Are they getting what they need? Because honestly, we expect to provide our customers and the populations they serve, we expect them to get the same things we'd expect as a user, right? And it's pretty much that simple, right? Because we use a lot of these systems ourselves, or we have parents or family members who use these systems that Oddball is fortunate enough to work on, and so it's like we have a high expectation that either we or the greater population as a whole is getting what we would want.
That's awesome. So, in closing, is there anything else that you all would like to share that we didn't cover today?
It's a good question. I think I said that a couple times actually. Yeah, no, nothing in particular. I think it's been a great conversation. I'm really excited for the future, what transformation looks like, and the role of AI. It's been great speaking with you, and happy to sort of share a nice conversation, and looking forward to the future.
Yeah,
Thanks so
and
much.
Susan, same here. Thank you for your time. You may or may not know this. I'm sure you do, but there's another big podcast happening in Austin today. And while we may not get as many likes for this, I'm confident we'll be a close second. So thank you for having us.
That's awesome. Well, you guys, so much for your time. This was such a great discussion, and certainly I've learned a lot, and we look forward to government and industry engaging with us to learn about all of focus that you shared with us today. So thanks again.
Thanks, Susan. Have a great
Thank you,
weekend.
Susan. Take care.
You too.
Bye now.
This concludes today's episode of the Fed to Fed podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps us continue bringing you thought-provoking conversations with the brightest minds in government technology. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will continue to explore opportunities to harness the power of technology and explore what's next in developing a more innovative and efficient government. Until then, this is the Fed to Fed podcast by GovTech Connects. Thank you for joining us.